Wolves, yeah, in the soul, lifting all the positivity for the Wolves to grow. So, where we going from here, man? We listen week to week to get the clearest to clear. Recaps, got that. Soundcap, got that. Team ads, got that. So tell me what they do not have, huh? How dare you? Foolish question to ask, but I don't mean to go brag. But boy, they got all the stats, and they could go all the way back from KG to Zerbiak. And all I'm saying is that the cast a one-stop shop for my Timberwolves. Timberwolves. Ain't a thing falling, everything's coming up. Timberwolves, Timberwolves. Falling from the autumn, ain't nobody gonna stop them. It's the Timberwolves, Timberwolves. Phonies, you can spot them, they the sheep under their clothes. Timberwolves, Timberwolves. Talk a lot about them, y'all don't really know. Let's go.
Welcome in to another Everything's Coming Up Timberwolves podcast. My name is Gabe Anderson, and I wish that we were coming to you under better circumstances. If you're a Wolves fan, you don't need me to tell you. You know what happened last night, but I got to introduce the panel. Chris, how we doing?
We're doing okay. I'm going to go glass half full today. I'll be good cop.
Good. And does that mean Jared will be our bad cop?
Maybe.
I don't know. Jared doesn't like to be bad cop, but I got a little bit from both sides, to be completely honest.
Okay. So obviously, unless you've been living under a rock or don't have cable, which I guess, or don't have access to a computer, which I guess is interesting, but you know that the Timberwolves blew two 20-plus point leads last night. Not one, but two 20-plus point leads last night en route to a loss to Memphis. And there's just so many things to talk about. But I let's start with you, Chris. What ultimately went wrong in this one? Like, what do you think? Like, was it not calling timeouts? Was it just bad offensive? Was it just all the Grizzlies? What did you think? What do you think was the biggest thing that went wrong in this one?
Well, I mean, I think we got to give some credit to the Grizzlies for sure. They played well. I think it might have been one of those things where, you know, the fact that we got outshot so well in the beginning that it almost took us out of what our game plan was and what we wanted to accomplish. And, you know, thought again, it was just going to be easy street the whole game. And, you know, the Grizzlies had a series last year, and they got blown out in that, and they've fought back, and they know how to compete. And they were just the tougher, more mentally strong team, and we were weak that way, you know. So I think it was just, you know, and we didn't play well. I mean, we just didn't play well. I mean, we scored under 100 points. I mean, that's not good. You know, for a team that averages like 130 for the last 2 months, like,
right,
that's important.
Yeah, Jared, anything to add on that? Or
well, Chris took my exact take. I kind of teased it when you guys did your last podcast. I don't know if you saw it in the comments, but when's the last time this team hasn't scored 100 points? It's very rare, and we've done it twice in a row now. And I would like to see what our record is when we don't score 100 points, because I can promise you it's not very good. And we've done, and we've done that twice in a row now. So that's obviously not a good way to start. But then, I mean, you know, it just came down to we haven't shot well all series, really, outside of that first game. Again, yesterday, 38%, out rebounded by 9. Yeah, you know, it's not the good recipe. And I think a lot of it has to do with Cat and his foul troubles. And we've talked about this many times. This team is going to struggle without him on the floor. Whether you love Cat or hate Cat, I know Minnesota in general right now has a lot of hate towards Cat for these playoff games. And you know, I don't think that's you got to remember, this guy is an all-star. He's a phenomenal player, but there's reasons to be mad that he's not playing well, because right now he's playing not like any of those things that I just mentioned. And he's got to step it up. If this series is going to turn at all, it's got to start with him. And it sounds crazy to say, because because we talk about how D'Lo and Ant are such streaky hot players, and it's nice to see those guys get going. But right now we got to start with where our roots are, and that's with Karl Anthony Towns putting the ball in the basket.
Mm-hmm. So where I want to go with this, what I've been reading and taking in everyone's comments, which I know a lot of people have knee-jerk reactions. Like let's say we lose in 5, right? Like let's say Cat is okay, but doesn't necessarily get it going. Is it time? Do we trade Cat? Like, or is that a ridiculous proposition? Like, is the time up in Minnesota? Is a few bad playoff games enough to send one of our franchise cornerstones away? I mean, what do you think, Chris? I don't know what to think about this, but so I want kind of your opinion.
So I love trades. I love that. That's one of my favorite parts of it. I would say if I was the GM, I'm gonna pretend I'm the Timberwolves GM.
It's GM score,
which I do every single day, probably in my life. But and maybe I should be. I listen. You know, I think it would be dumb to not put feelers out there. And truthfully, I would do that for every player. D'Lo, Anthony Edwards, everybody. I'd listen. If someone's going to give you some crazy package, I'm going to listen. And when it comes to Cat, here's the dilemma we have. D'Lo's up for a max contract this year, okay? This offseason. You know, obviously he's not worth it, but what's the package worth, you know? And who do you replace him with if you don't give D'Lo that money? So now we've got Cat, who's probably going to be eligible for the Supermax, which is like an added like 7-8 million a year onto it, which just straps us more and more when it comes to signing future free agents and signing guys like Anthony Edwards and Jaden and McDaniels and stuff like that. I think you should consider it. I mean, I don't know if Cat has the maturity or truthfully the athletic ability to be a Jokic / Embiid type performer. I think there's a level of wiggle, there's a level of fluidity and motion that Cat does not have that's needed in the art of basketball to be super successful on that high level. It's not like Embiid and Jokic are not getting double teamed every play. It's not like teams do not, you know, change up their defense in the playoffs to strictly try to stop those guys. They are, and those guys are still dominating. So to give Cat a super max on top of that, which is going to hurt the team going forward, it makes it real tough, man. It makes it tough to keep moving forward with the roster. I would listen to trades, but more than likely, we're going to give them the super max. We're going to give D'Lo the max. We're going to hope that our first round pick and our mid-level exception, we hit gold on it. And in the next 2 years, if those guys that we, you know, pick up to add to this team don't blossom to be great, we blow it up in 2 years and rebuild and retool around Anthony Edwards. I think that's how we're going to have to do it. But I don't see a real trade. I think that's all pipe dreams. I don't think that's how it really works in reality. But I would think about it.
Jared, what'd you think about it?
Well, before I answer this question, I'm genuinely looking at our screen, and I know someone's going to screenshot this podcast because we genuinely look really sad right now, all three of us. But my gut reaction says no. Cat's a talented player. He's got some figuring out to do, though. He has to establish who he is. If he's this guy that's going to, and it sounds crazy to say about an all-star, but if he's going to be this guy that's always bitching for a call and always, you know, fighting with the refs, like, is he a superstar or is he just another guy that complains? We already have a guy that does that quite frequently. I would say that his name's Patrick Beverly. So I don't think there's a whole lot of room for guys that just bitch and moan when they don't get their calls. Now, Cat's a phenomenal player, and he's a building stone on this team, to me anyways. Would I listen? I mean, yeah, if somebody throws out something where you're like, hey, you know what? You know, I'll take, I don't know, a guy that I really like is Brandon Ingram, but like that's probably not a trade that works as a GM. But I mean, I would definitely listen, but I wouldn't be like rushing out and calling all 29 other teams and asking them, hey, what are you guys going to give me for Cat? Like that probably isn't a conversation that I'm willing to have right now. Mm-hmm. I guess the next two games would obviously, for me, would be more important just to see how he responds, because now he's going from here to here. So how does he respond with his adversity? Because for the most part, he hasn't responded well to it. So we'll see how game 4 turns out. It really sucks that we lost that game yesterday, because we could have a 2-1 series lead and be at home with all the momentum in the world. And we completely pissed that game away yesterday. I'm thankful to say that I actually didn't get to watch a whole lot of it, because I feel like my morale is a little bit better that I didn't watch the complete collapse. But when talking about Cat, I'm always gonna kind of defend him in a way, but he's been piss poor so far.
Mm-hmm. Chris, you had some? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned just stepping up for Cat. I think a lot of it is he's very immature, and that's not surprising. He's a young person. I think that maturity comes at different times for people. I think that last year and this year, he's talked himself into trying to be a superstar, and he's trying to be a superstar on Instagram with his famous girlfriend, and he's making excuses based off his performance and, how hard COVID hit him emotionally and stuff. And yeah, people are different emotionally, but you know what? I don't care. Like you're getting paid to perform on the court, and I'm sorry, that your mom passed and people pass, and that sucks, but I don't want to keep hearing about it. Like those excuses have to stop at some point. Like when he had that bad Clippers game, he didn't want to say it, but he alluded to it. I heard him like try to get like a media member to like say, oh, what are you talking about, multiple times, because it was the day before the 2-year anniversary of his mom. It was like always this thing where it's, well, this was 2 years ago, my mom went into the hospital, or 2 years ago was the last time she was at a basketball game, or it's getting to the point where he's gotta just play better, and I don't want to hear that stuff. And I think that this type of game hopefully hits home with him, where he laid in bed last night and he had, some real deep thoughts, same as Anthony Edwards. He played terrible last night. When it comes down to it, when they're blitzing Cat with multiple defenders and they've got their best defender, Bane, on D'Lo trying to deny him the ball, it's time for Edwards to put up 40. Like that's what you have to do in this situation. I get it, you're young. I get it, this is your first time in the playoffs, but if you want to win this series, that's what we need. Desmond Bane looked like the better player last night. You know what I mean? Like that should never happen. So we'll see. I think maturity is a big thing with Cat, and I think he's got a couple years to still mature, but the clock's ticking.
Jared, go ahead.
If I'm an assistant coach on this team, or if I'm somebody that genuinely is around Cat and coaching him, a lot of these coaches don't get paid money to notice these kinds of things. But, like the average Joes, like me, us three that watch games, there's basic things that we notice. And if I'm watching the game film and I'm an assistant coach and I see Cat do this with his goofy eyes towards a referee, I'm circling that. And I'm saying, you're going to stop doing this immediately, or we're never going to go anywhere. And I'm going to count how many times in the game where he puts up his two hands, looks at the refs, and's got those goofy eyes like, where's my foul call? That's what has to stop with Cat. It has to start mentally, and mentally right now he's broken with the referees, and he has been for a while.
Since Ryan Saunders. He didn't complain under Ryan Saunders. I think Ryan Saunders made it a very, very strong point when he was coaching to not complain to the refs for anybody. And we went a year where I remember we mentioned it on here. We weren't complaining. It just wasn't happening. And the moment Finch took over, it was different. Like And I don't know if it's a bad thing. I think, all superstars complain and complain at a high level. And I think that people who think Cat is like the only one complaining they just don't watch NBA basketball, which is fine. But they all do it. I mean, Jokic is a huge complainer. Embiid is a huge complainer. Harden, Durant, all these guys, LeBron, all these guys, Chris Paul, they all do it. Booker, anyone who's good complains constantly. But for Cat, it seems to take him out of the game more. And the refs aren't giving him back that like those complaints aren't bringing in better calls. So you need to stop that. The other guys, those complaints work. They're not working for him yet.
I think if you want to get that respect or the respect of the league, go out and win the series. You want to get respect, you have to start winning. We haven't won anything. We're starting to win, but now we're just this team that, won the play-in game, and we're up against a pretty good Memphis team, and we're playing okay. We've had a couple nice flashes. Go out and win. That's how you start getting calls. When the league starts respecting you, then you'll start getting the calls. Nobody respects the Wolves right now. Nobody has respected the Wolves in 20 years. Go win a series, make a name for yourselves, then you'll get the calls.
Right. I totally agree with that sentiment. I think a huge turning point in the game, particularly, I can't remember if this was in the first half or second half, but that D'Lo layup where he kind of did like the twisting thing, and then he got fouled. And I honestly, it's hard for me to tell because I was in attendance in the upper deck. Was that did the refs make the right call on that? I honestly don't know. No,
absolutely not.
Okay.
I think what it was, and I don't want to get into conspiracy stuff, but that was Ja's. It was early or middle second quarter, and that would have been Ja's third foul. And it looked like a very standard layup. I mean, he jumped. He jumped for the layup. And if you think you can jump for a layup without raising your legs, I don't know how that is. Like, he didn't kick out. He didn't extend his foot. It was his knee. His knee went up at a 90-degree angle, which you do when you jump. So it was the craziest. Truthfully, it was the craziest call I've seen. And the fact we challenged it and it still didn't go our way was more crazy. And people were mad at Finch for challenging it. And Finch is known not to take early challenges. Like, he never takes early challenges.
Yeah.
But that was huge because it was a third foul on D'Lo or the third foul on Ja. And that's a huge turning point early second quarter. And it also killed. It was a momentum killer. Like, it was bad. And I'm going to say that it was dude, the refs, I'm going to tell you, I've watched that Donahue book. I read that, and there's direction that comes down from the NBA where they're like, hey, we don't want Ja fouling out earlier, try to do this and that to keep this series going or whatever. Like, it happens. And there's a couple plays. There's one on Cat too, where like him and Ja got tangled up and it went on Cat. And they were very, very iffy and looked like there was a little bit of a fix in. And I'm trying to think that that's not just me being a homer, but I didn't like it. I thought it was a terrible call.
Yeah, I just, from watching it, I didn't get it. Like, even from, like, what is he? So, like, when Cat does it and, like, sticks his foot out or whatever on the three, I understand that. Like, okay. But, like, I was watching it, like, I don't see where the foul is on our guy. Like, I don't see where D'Lo fouled him at all. Like,
and that would have been a 3-point play. He made the basket. He made the layup. Yeah. And, I mean, so it took 3 points off and gave D'Lo a third foul instead of giving Ja a third foul. Huge swing.
Yeah. It made zero sense to me. Like, even if I was a Memphis fan, I'd be like, I don't understand that. Like, it just, and not only the ref you suck thing, but like they went and looked at it. Like, they went and looked at it, and I watched it as much as I could, and I just did not understand the foul. We were talking a little bit about coaching earlier, and Chris, you might be a good one to ask this because you saw more of the game. But I felt like Finch, for some reason, shouldn't have held on to his timeouts a little bit. Like, when they're starting to go on that run, I feel like you need to take a timeout, maybe sub someone in. Like I was talking to my dad who watched the game too. He was saying maybe throw in Jalen Noel or even J-Mac just to stabilize the team a little bit. J-Mac just find someone open. What did you think? Did you think he mishandled when Memphis went on that crazy run? I think it was like a 21-0 run or maybe even more than that.
It was 24. Yeah. That was the second run.
Yeah, the second one, the second half, yeah.
So Phil Jackson is known for this. Phil Jackson was known throughout his entire career to never call a timeout when his team was getting a run put on him because he wanted them to fight through it. Finch said later that, we used a couple of timeouts early and he was, a little low on timeouts and he wanted to save them for later in the fourth, which I understand a little bit. But I think on another side, and I don't know, he's not thinking this way, but we're not winning the championship this year. It's not happening. So what I'm okay with is letting these guys feel that burn, feel that, like we can't do anything, feel that train running you over. Like basketball has been fun and joyful for these guys. Cat, talking about he's the best, whatever, he, winning the 3-point shootout. Guys like, I love Anthony Edwards, but him basically like, this is all fun and joyful for me. Well, now it's not. Now it's a job and you got kicked right in the face and they left you out there and let you just burn, and I think there's some learning to that. That's beautiful. I don't know if that's what Finch was really doing, but I think there's a beautiful side of that in a playoff series, your first playoff series at home, to just feel the disgust of everybody watch you just get crushed at a 26.0 lead. I don't think you can. I mean, it's easy to hang it on the coach because it's the easy out. But I mean, we weren't making shots. We kept jacking threes. Like we have professionals out there, multiple guys that have been in all-star games, learn to settle it down, learning experience. I'm fine with that. Yes, hindsight 2020, I wish he would have called a timeout. But if we would have won that game, like if we lost by 9 points, let's not act like we got blown out. If we would have won that game, that would have been a huge learning experience for all these guys going forward. So, I mean, I get it. It's not perfect, but it's deep down on my list of things that I think caused the problem.
Okay. Jared, what do you think?
I have a little different spin on runs. Obviously, I have a little bit of coaching experience. There's times when I would be coaching a team and a team would go on like a 10-0 run and I would call timeout because that's kind of how I coach. When I coach and team goes on runs, a lot of times I won't even say anything when I call a timeout. I won't change anything. We'll be the exact same team, but we just need them to get out of their little hot stretch here. So we'll take a timeout. We won't talk about much and we'll just keep everything how we're going. And a lot of times just changing the flow of the game just for that 30 seconds is a big difference mentally for people. You see teams go on massive runs and it's demoralizing. Like the Timberwolves woke up this morning and probably felt like they got hit by a bus. Like it wasn't the fact that we lost. I mean, Memphis is a good team. It was the way that we lost. We had
100%. Yeah.
Two multiple big leads and I don't know, man. I hope that they don't fold because I think if we lose game 4, I bet you it'll be over in 5. And I think if we win game 4 and it's a confidence boosting win and it's, not sloppy. One thing I want to see in this series just once is a game where we don't have 30 fouls. We had 28 yesterday. Like it sounds so cliche to, constantly bring up the refs because things aren't going our way. But like even in the first game, like there's so many fouls being called. And I just want to see a good game where the player I shouldn't say that the players aren't deciding the games because they still are, but like it just seems like it's
flows.
Yeah, it's the Clippers game even 13 fouls and a technical in the first quarter. It's like just let the damn guys play a little bit. Like if it's 8 fouls combined at the end of the first quarter, I'm cool with it. Fouls happen. Like I don't want to sit here and go on a rant about fouls, but man, it really pisses me off when you see 30 whistles blown a game. Nas Reed had 5 fouls in 10 minutes yesterday. Like it's insane. But that's what I got.
I would love to see the internet come through and show me how many times has a coach called a timeout on a run, and then when they come back in, the run just keeps going. Like I mean, it's not like a timeout gives your team 10 points and takes the other team's best shooter off the court. Like, I wonder how much it really does. Like, oh, now it's stopped. All the momentum's killed. I don't know if that really happens in the NBA. Maybe it does. I mean, I'm sure sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. But, how about the fact Cat shot four shots all game? How about that? Like, how about the fact that in the fourth quarter we were like 1 for 11 from three? Like, let's look at some of those things. I get it, the timeout thing, but again, on the big scheme of things, that's low on my list.
Okay. So
him not taking the timeout wasn't the reason why we lost. I agree with you, Chris.
But it could have helped. I mean, 2020, I wish he would have.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he should have as well. So, I mean, maybe we could go with that. Cat only shooting 4 times. Is it just like so we said after the Clipper game, like his post-game comments, the game that we won, we were saying, oh, okay, Cat just needs to kick it out and run the offense a little more. So it seems like he was doing that against Memphis a little bit. He wasn't trying to force it too much. Does he just need to find that happy medium? Like, just find that happy medium of when to attack, when to kick it out? Is that just going to be a learning process for him, or?
Well, I don't have a problem with the 4 shots. I mean, it's not good. It's the least amount of shots he's ever shot in his entire career. So obviously, it could have been better. But what I have a problem with is the 5 rebounds, and I have a problem with the fact that, he was still in foul trouble the whole game. The fact that they were heavily doubling us and he got to kick it out, and I think he was making the right play and we went on a run. So what needed to happen is those other guys needed to step up. D'Lo needed to hit shots. I think there's a time when Beasley needs to be in there more. He didn't play when we need shooters, when we're scoring under 100 points, you need maybe one of the NBA's best shooters to be out there over Pat Bev. I get it, Pat Bev is scrappy and it's fun and all that stuff, but I don't need him shooting 5 shots in the fourth quarter going 0 for 5. Like, Beasley's one of the best shooters in the NBA. Get him out there so that when you swing, you've got a deadly guy in the corner, not a guy who's, kind of suspect, So, I mean, there's going to be adjustments from this, but we were up 20 twice on these guys, you know? So we were doing good things. We just need to keep doing that and find out what that was and what got us out of that. I think we can take like you said, we get a win on Saturday. It's a tied up series. Okay. If someone told me we were 2-2 going back to Memphis, before the season started or the series started, I'd be cool with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jared, go ahead. You got something?
I love that you brought up Beasley replacing Beverly. Well, not like replacing him in like the starting lineup or anything, but like more minutes for Beasley for me. Beasley's got to play 30 minutes in this series, in my opinion. And Beverly needs to be ticked down a little bit. Like, he was 0 for 5 from 3, 5 for 13. Like, he's just shooting too much for being Pat Beverly. Like, he's a defensive guy and he's a leader, but he's not a shooter. Like, we got to stop pretending that we need Beverly to shoot 5 threes a game. Like, that's just not the right recipe for success. I'd rather see Prince shoot more than Beverly personally. Beverly is in there for defense and to get in people's heads, but he's not a scorer. Like, I had 2 points really coming into this. Obviously, I didn't catch much of the game yesterday. I was super busy at work, but that was the one thing that like stood out to me is Beasley needs to play more minutes than Beverly. And I think Beverly played like 6 or 7 more minutes than Beasley, if I remember off the top of my head. And I would like to see those minutes shares flip-flopped almost completely.
And he controlled the ball a lot too. When Beverly was in there, he was running the point. I mean, maybe some of it was Dylan Brooks locking up D'Lo. It could be, but I mean, what Cat needs to do or what the other guys need to do is kill Memphis for defending Cat that way. We were up 25. We could have been up 40 if we just kept that vibe going. And guess what would have happened next game? They wouldn't have had that defense on Cat, and then Cat could have been free. So it is a team game, but Cat needs to do more than 5 rebounds. And he tried in his post-game presser talking himself up like, oh, well, what I was doing was boxing everyone out so Vando could get boards. Man, get out of here. Like, stop that back pat and stuff. Yeah.
It was interesting to see that Vanderbilt played as much as he did for a guy that was almost, non-existent in the series, and then they played like 33 minutes yesterday. That kind of surprised me.
He had a good game.
You know, was a huge part of that, which we talked about on our podcast. He played the 5. So when Cat went out for a while, he came in and he played the 5, and we went on like a 16-point run. So I think Vando can easily play the 5 in this series because who's killing us on low post moves?
No one.
Brandon Clark, maybe, but that's more on putbacks and stuff than anything else.
And who can fight that better than anyone is Vando. So I don't think there's any reason why Vando can't be the backup 5 in this game, because Nas playing out on the perimeter, chasing Jaren Jackson Jr. at 3 and stuff like that's not his strong suit. So yeah, I mean, I liked that change, and it's something that we called for on here, and I'm glad that they gave it a try.
Absolutely. So we got to wrap this up pretty quick, mainly because I think a few of us have to get back to work. But one last question that I want to ask: is this the most, in your memory? Now, obviously, and this is why I'm asking this question, because we're all coming from different memories. We all had different primes in Minnesota Timberwolves basketball. Is this the most devastating loss in Wolves history?
Yes.
In your opinion? Start with you.
I mean, obviously, Western Conference Finals and stuff is much worse. Right. But other than that, yeah, for sure. Because this is the start of a franchise. This is a start of something going forward. And if we would have won that game, I think we would have been in the driver's seat for this division, for this series. And going into, beating the number 2 seed would have went a long ways for this team's confidence. But it also could end up being the best loss for this franchise. It might spark these guys. And, Edwards wasn't a post-game presser. He might have went home last night and really felt like, okay, I need to take over. And if he scores 45 next game and, maybe 45 the game after or something like that, it might be a turning point in his career. So I'll let you know on Saturday night.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. If they come out flat, then, I mean, it's gonna be interesting to watch. Jared, what do you think? Most devastating ever, or what do you think?
Yeah. So I mean, I've grown up a Wolves fan for a long time, but I've really put a lot of time and effort into this team, more so in the past 5 years opposed to like the early 2000s. And that's just because I have more time and I'm older now. But the last time that I was like demoralized by a game is going to be kind of a weird answer, but it was when we were the Jimmy Butler year. I think it was game 4 that we ended up losing at home, where I was at that game, or maybe it was game 3. I don't remember, but
we hung. I was there too.
Yeah, so we hung with them for 3 quarters. It was like even, and then we lost by like 20 in the 4th, and it was just like, this isn't our year. Pack it up. We're going home, and that one was really, really kind of demoralizing for me. But thankfully, I didn't get to watch much of yesterday's game, and I think my morale heading into game 4, because I didn't see the collapse, is a little bit higher than the rest of us. So,
well, good.
It hurt, but
hopefully we can share.
But it wasn't devastating.
Right. So, like we said, hopefully things go better game 4. Things did go good for a long part of that game, but hopefully we can sustain it. I would love to come and just blow them out. Wouldn't you? I know that's what it felt like last night, but if we can win by like 20 or something and just blow them out, I would feel a lot better. Anyway, this is the Everything's Coming Up Timberwolves podcast. Chris, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, I'm just going to say a couple quick things.
Sure.
We held one of the best offenses in the NBA to 109 points. In the 4th quarter, Pat Beverly was 0 of 5. Beasley was 0 of 4. D'Lo was 0 of 3. Ant was 1 of 3. Nas was 1 of 3. And Cat made his only shot. That kind of shooting's not going to happen again. Right. We were 1 from 11 for deep, 3 from 19 overall in the 4th quarter. That's not going to happen again. We were the number 1 scoring team in the NBA. We had 2 quarters of 12 points. That's not going to happen again. We can come back. We can beat these guys.
I agree. And Jared, thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely. One game at a time now. We got to have game 4, though. If we win game 4, we're probably done. If we win game 4, best of 3. We've been in these situations. Kind of.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the Everything's Coming Up Timberwolves podcast. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and hit the bell and tell a friend as well. And make sure to follow us on Spotify so you never miss an episode. And as always, go Wolves, and let's hope for a better game 4.